I'm Sam Castor, bald believer. Welcome to Lumina, Law and Light. We're here with the awesome Braxton Storm.
Don't say it too much.
Yeah, the coolest name ever. I mean, there's a lot of really cool names, but that's a really cool one.
It's a good one.
You're a comic book hero.
That's how it is.
Yeah, for sure. I just imagine you like lightning bolts out of your fingers or something. I'm stoked you're here. So, you're a counselor.
Yeah.
And you do marriage and family therapy and also addiction recovery. No, what's your focus?
So I do. I'm a parenting expert, so that's what I focus on is parenting. But I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
That's what. Okay. Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah. No worries.
But you also, and I've watched a couple of your episodes where you talk about helping parents understand their role, how to be anchored, how to be peaceful and successful as a parent. What led you to that? Because you have a pretty wild story.
Yeah.
Are you open to talk about that?
Yeah. So I grew up in California, Northern California, in the foster care system.
Oh man.
And that must
have like sucked.
Yeah, it was crazy. Back then, when a parent would mess up or do something that would get their child taken away, they had 3 chances. I don't know if it's the same now, but
it's like 3 strikes and you're out.
Yep. And so in between those strikes, my aunt and uncle sometimes would come and get me, and they'd be like, "We're going on vacation." And as like a 3, 4, 5-year-old, I'd be like, "Okay, fun." And like 6 months later, I'd go back to my mom and try it out again. But so I spent some time in foster care and with my aunt and uncle and my grandma, all the way up until I was 10, and then that's the 3rd strike happened around then, and I got adopted by my aunt and uncle. That kind of funneled where I am now. But
so that gives you a lot of foundational empathy. Like you understand how important parental interaction is, how important parents are for kids.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm a parent of 3, soon to be 4, and that was like my main drive was like, I just want to do something different than what I was given, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm perfect at it, but that's it's really rewarding to be able to work with parents and help them do the same.
Oh, for sure. Well, you have really good advice for parents. A lot of the stuff you've talked about, like helping get rid of your own internal shame, not putting stuff on other people, that kind of stuff has really resonated with me and my wife.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most important thing ever is how we show up as parents.
Yeah.
Even though it's really easy to get distracted and be like, oh, I'm going to go do this cool thing and build this business, or, for me to go do this lawsuit and make all this money and change the world. It's like, no, you're changing the world right here in your house with this little person that's committed to you.
It's like not super overly complicated, right? Like if you just break it down, like we're here on earth literally to raise children. That's the main priority, right?
Yeah.
To make covenants and raise children, and all the other stuff is excess, right? It's important, but not as important as
it's noise.
As this stuff, yeah.
It can be really, I'm reminded of President Benson, one of our prophets, where he was saying, you'll have an interview with God when you get to the other side, and he's not going to ask you first what you did, or he's going to ask you about your relationship with your spouse and with your kids at the top of that list.
Yeah.
An individual accounting, not just were you a good dad?
Right.
What did you do to help this child? What did you do to help this child? Does that create like stress for you, or
as a father, or as a
and as a parental coach?
Yeah, I think it should, right? I think it should weigh on you a little bit.
Why?
Because it's so crucial, right? It's so critical, and probably more importantly than that, it's so easy to get distracted. Right? The world is full of distractions on purpose. And it's easy to lead, like you said, right? Like, let's go do the business, or let's do this, or let's chase the cash or whatever. But I think that's on purpose. But what I found in talking to parents and myself, it's like when you realign and focus on what truly matters and what you value, there's no joy comparable to that, right? Like when you start to dive into, I was just talking to my neighbor about this, like when you just realize this is the most important thing, right? Like what happens in these 4 walls, it's an immense amount of joy that you can bring.
Yeah. And a lot of weight, to your point, like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So what is your best advice for parents who don't feel like they're up to that challenge?
It's a great question. Yeah. I actually just put a post out, I think yesterday about this, but.
Did you?
I think so. Yeah. probably lots of things, but the most important thing that I think I tell parents is like the fact that you show up, right? The fact, especially parents that come into my office, like there's a lot of parents, probably the majority of parents, that don't go get some help, right? Or don't try to do better, or even question in their mind, right? Like, could I be a better parent? Right? The fact that you're asking yourself, that it weighs on you, that it's something you think about, right? When you're away from your kids, like, oh, how are they doing? Or how could I do different? Or if you mess up, if that thought comes to mind, like, man, how could I do something better next time? That's a pretty sure tell sign that you're doing okay, right? You're on the right path.
That you're trying.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that there's plenty of times where I'm like, at least I'm trying.
Amen, right? That's how I am most of the time.
Yeah.
100%.
So, is there a routine that you found is most beneficial to help parents feel anchored, or feel like they're in a place where they can show up with peace, they can show up well with their kids? What are some of the things that help people do that?
I think sometimes, maybe you've ran into this, I know I have, I think we live in denial as parents, right? What I mean by that is, when you become parents, you're faced with all of your greatest weaknesses. I don't know if that's
Sure.
how you've experienced parenting, but
Yeah, actually, now that you say it that way, that's exactly
it's like each of your kids, each of your interactions, it's like your greatest weaknesses, your insecurities, your worries, your past traumas or things that you've been through are all showing up in your interactions, right? And so I think as parents, it's important for us to take ownership, right? Instead of trying to pass the buck. And I have a lot of parents, especially earlier on in my career, who would call me and be like, okay, like I have this kid, essentially like, please fix them. And I would buy into it, right? Like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll fix the teen or whatever. And what I realize is like the parents, right? I flip it. And what I do now is just focus on parents, and then naturally things change with kids. But I think as parents, we need to own our story, right? We need to own the fact that we're a mess, right? And that we have some strengths and we have some things that can contribute, but we have to own all of it. You can't pass the buck and say, well, I'll change when my teenager changes, or, man, if they would just listen, or if they make me so mad. Right? All these things that we do kind of casually, none of that is productive, right?
Yeah, I'm imagining the Bart Simpson iconic scene of Homer reaching over and strangling Bart.
Yeah.
And the whole TV show is about how bad Bart is.
Right.
It's like,
it's easy to do that.
Yeah, well, but none of us want to be Homer Simpson.
100%, right?
Yeah. Well, and on that note, there's a lot of messaging in the world about how dads, for years, there's been this like decades of dad is dumb.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know if you've recently watched It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where one of the little boys runs in to go talk to his dad, and on the back of the wall is a father's knows best sign in the movie.
Interesting.
So culturally, back in the 40s and 30s and 20s, we had this culture of father's knows best. Dad is Superman. He can fix any problem. And then the script has been flipped
100%
over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's really emasculated manhood and fatherhood and destroyed this protective shield that dads can provide, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's, you know what, it's so interesting that you talked about this. I was just listening to a podcast about the Old Testament, and they were talking about the Garden of Eden and how Satan's like the father of all lies, right? So in the garden, Jesus and Heavenly Father say you can eat all the fruit except for one, right? But then in the script, in the text, Satan says, do you remember, like, he said not to eat anything, right? Don't eat any of the fruit. And it's just interesting, like, how Satan like changes things subtly, right? And I think, to your point, as fathers, yeah, like, we are critical to the growth and development of our kids. But the lie, right? I mean, it's more pronounced perhaps, but the lie is that we're not. But the research actually shows different, right? The research shows that the long-term outcomes of children into adulthood are more influenced by fathers than they are by mothers.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
In fact, I want to hear more about that, because I remember learning a study when I was in my early 20s, right when I was becoming a father. My mother has written and published a number of books. She's very prolific. Deseret book, bunch of children's stories. And she found this study by the American Library Association as she was in that world of writing, that said that the single biggest variable about whether a child reads, the single biggest determining factor is whether or not they see their father read. If they see their father read, then the child wants to read.
Yeah.
Even if it's the comics in the newspaper.
Right.
And that was interesting to me. So Annalise always says, whatever dads do is gold. Even though the Homer Simpson culture is like, dads are done.
It's kind of like whatever. Right.
Yeah, it's inconsistent with actually how we're programmed and biologically framed to go look at our dad and go, cool guy.
Yeah.
I want to be, right?
100%.
Okay, so what other reinforcing studies or data have you found about this idea?
In terms of, I don't know if there's any other research that I've read about that, but when I read that original research about the impact of dads, I think that changed the way I saw the relationship, right? Because oftentimes you'll see this in the work that I do, especially like when parents come in, it's usually the child who outwardly is more connected to their mother, right? In general, just because they're more involved, but inwardly and deep in their hearts, they want, like, yearn for a closer relationship with their father. I just had a little girl come in yesterday who expressed that to me. We were worried about, like, why is she anxious and why is all these things going on? And her mom's like, well, it's just because, whatever it was in the session. She said, I just want my dad. He's just working all the time and he's busy. I just want to be closer to him. And I think that's important, right? Like, we as dads, we have a lot on our shoulders. There's a lot going on and a lot of expectation in the world. Again, like, that's all important, but within those walls, right? Like, that's where all this needs to be focused and tailored.
I'm sure, yeah. Well, and then you add cell phones to the mix.
Yeah.
And people are like,
don't get me on that topic.
Digital zombies, yeah.
It's crazy.
So, and I, all of us, I mean, it's crazy. Back in the 90s, Google actually got a patent on manipulating your physiological state with a screen. So they can change your biochemistry with what you're looking at, which is crazy because in the scriptures we know that the eye is the window to the soul, right? Wherever your focus is where your energy goes.
Right.
And so I imagine my own little kids standing around me or sitting around me waiting for me to stop looking at my cell phone because I'm working or.
Yeah.
And it's so destructive to their connection, their sense of connection. So how do you fix that? How do you help parents come out of that?
I was actually personally, I was just thinking about that this week. Like, I get on my phone so often that I'm like, man, like, I need to change. What are some steps that I could take? And what I found is, like, my wife's really good at this. When she gets home, she just puts her phone in her nightstand. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, what about calls? Or what about, like, if, when you. And she's like, yeah, like, at night after the kids go to bed, we'll deal with it, And I think, again, like, we get so wrapped up in, like, life's so busy and there's so many demands on our time. That's a perspective, right? It's not reality usually.
Yeah.
Everything can wait.
Yeah. Do you remember when we didn't have cell phones?
Yeah, right? I often think about that too. Like, there was a period of time I didn't even think that was a thing. I didn't know that was a thing, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get a phone until I was, like, in my late teens, I think.
One of my brothers insists that in 5 years there won't be cell phones anymore. He's like, the world is always to reject it. They're going to say this is the stupidest thing we did.
That's a good idea.
To our society and our culture.
Go back to the wall phones.
Right. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely hard on bodies. It's kind of on societal culture connection. I remember meeting with a doctor who did surgery, my back surgery, or he helped with it years ago. And this is when cell phones were big. And he was like, oh, yeah, I was using my cell phone so much I ruptured a disc. So I just went out and cut out some of the disc. And he showed me the hole in his back. I was like, what? We have a problem.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. He's like, it's fine. Dr. Adishak he's local. Yeah. He's like, it's fine. Or he was helping with Annalise's pregnancy, something. And I was like, wow, this is crazy that we just are so accustomed. Like, our bodies were not designed to stare at a screen.
Yeah. Like, and we'll do anything to adapt to the toxin, right? We'll do whatever it needs.
Isn't that crazy? So what are some of the things that you can do to help people reattach to the better things? Like, what are some of the ways to pull people out of that?
I think to answer that question, you probably have to answer the reverse of that, is why is it so painful? Why don't we attach to reality, right? Why is it so hard? I think a lot of us have a lot of pain, right? At least in the work that I do, right? In a unique space, but I deal with people all the time who just have a lot of pain, right? They run away from things, and they don't really have the skills or kind of going back to what I said before, we don't own our stories. And so I think that fuels the phone use, right? The escape, whatever the escape is, not just phone use, right? But
The distraction.
the distraction. And so I think that's how you address it, right? Like, how can I be myself in reality and feel comfortable with who I am? I struggle with that, right? I struggle with like, oh, what are they thinking? Or how do I look? Or, all the little things. And so it's easy just to get on the phone and you don't think about any of that anymore, right? It's all gone.
Yeah, that's real. It's really easy to self-medicate.
There's unlimited options, right? There's so many things and most of them are socially acceptable things to do.
Yeah, the dopamine generation.
Yeah.
You never created.
Yeah.
Man, so you it's interesting because you're here offering all this aid. You're helping parents. You're offering counseling and advice on how to be happy and healthy and whole. Do you think some of that's fueled by I know obviously your desire to not have other people suffer what you suffered, what you're trying to help
Sure.
them get out of it. But is it also because you found medicine that really benefits you, and so you're trying to offer it to others? Is that kind of what fuels it?
Yeah, I love this quote. The opposite of suffering is connection. And so a lot of the things I focus on in my coaching programs and my clinical therapy is this idea of building connection with self first and then with others.
Sure.
Right. And speaking for myself as a dad, I don't think there's anything more rewarding that I've felt than being truly connected, right? Like those deep moments with your kids. So if I can help other parents to experience the same and other children subsequently to experience that, right? That undivided, loving connection.
Powerful.
It's totally worth it, right?
Yeah, so rewarding.
Yeah.
Well, I like to joke when I teach Institute and stuff that we all know that coming to this life and experiencing the fall, we leave heaven is painful, to your point on pain, because all of us come out screaming.
Yeah. There's no part of that that's joyful.
Yeah. And to your point about connection, the very first thing we do as humans is reach for that connection. Our hands are designed to connect, to grasp. It's one of the what is it, the APGAR test, when they do with children to see if they clasp, that means they've developed healthfully.
Right.
Yeah. And so, of course, anything that interrupts or interferes with that connective health is very damaging.
The interesting thing about that is that none of that has to do with the child, right? It all has to do with the parent, right? So the child's going to keep reaching out until the parent does it enough, withdraws enough times, and then the child will turn inward or turn somewhere else. So like the crying, right? Like if you leave your child in a crib crying, eventually they're going to stop crying if you don't pick them up, right? And that's the dangerous part. So it has to do all with the parents. I think as parents, we sometimes think, well, like the child has to do their part. And I think that's true, but they don't have to. I would venture to say that 90% of parenting in general is us, right? It's all us. And we have to own that. We have to own the fact that our brains, right, for most of us are the only ones fully developed in the home. We're the ones that are trying, like have the most wisdom, have the most life experience. And oftentimes we twist it to say like, well, they have to do something different, right? It's not how it usually works out.
Yeah, which is what leads parents to say, oh, hey, counselor, fix my kid.
Fix my kid, right? So that I feel more comfortable in my mess.
Yeah, that makes me think of how, I remember I had a dog coach when we got a dog during COVID. She was like, listen, bad dogs come from bad owners.
Yeah.
Now, that's terrifying for parents because if your kids show up out of control, do something that embarrasses you, I think that pain coupled with fear of being embarrassed, fear of this says something about me, that can be terrifying for a parent.
100%.
Yeah. So
it's not easy.
How do parents, what's the best way to navigate that? What do you think?
When you said that example, the first question that came to mind is like, where's your priority, right? Is your priority what everyone thinks in the grocery store? Right? Because that priority is going to fuel whatever comes next, right?
Yeah.
So if you're so worried about what the cashier thinks or what the lady next door thinks or whatever, that's going to usually end in some sort of aggressive, disconnected behavior, right?
Yeah, an abuse of your kid in some
at times
degree.
Yeah, if you let it go too long, right? Yeah. So if your priority is all the external stuff, then yeah. But if your priority is that little kid in front of you, there's never been a time where I'm fully focused on my child and it ends up badly, right? But it's usually when I'm busy, tired, stressed out, thinking about, money or whatever else, that then I begin to get, not aggressive is probably too big of a word, but intolerant of whatever's going on in front of me.
That's a good word.
But if I'm fully there, right? Going back to my wife, like she puts the phone away, she's just there, right? It's very rare that you have bad interactions in those moments.
So there's this parental-kid dynamic, and and it's natural for us to say, I care about how my kid shows up. Parents we want to be proud of our kids. We want to find joy in our children when they show up in a way that society says is bad.
Yeah.
There's this natural culture that says, well, that reflects on me. And I agree with you that that's like a mature person who feels connected to God and has a relationship and finds their worth in that relationship, not in how a kid's showing up, or they're not worried about whatever it thinks. It's easier for them to say, I don't care what the world says. I'm defined by my relationship with my kid and with God. And and then you add all these other wrinkles, like children with special needs, children who are neurodivergent, children who are learning at a different capacity or a different level than maybe society would say is where they should be at, right?
Right.
That happens with some of my kids. My kids are bigger.
Yeah.
And I have people who are like, why is your kid acting that way? Aren't they older? And it's like, no, they're right. Stuff like that, right? So on that point, I mean, obviously there's we should have tons of compassion for parents. So I have two questions about that. One is, if you have a parent, if you are a parent who has a child and you're struggling with that special need, neurodivergence, some learning disability, what's your advice to a parent to help them deal with that? And then the second question I have is, when you see someone at a grocery store and their kid's freaking out, I think that's a different scenario. But what happens when you see the parent freaking out? There have been moments where I've seen a parent lose it with their kid, and I want to be like, hey, you're in that corner over there, kid over there, right? Like, how do you deal with all those different dynamics and emotions? What advice do you have for people who are watching?
So to the first question about neurodivergence, or the wrinkles, as you said, right? Again,
which are beautiful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, like, you could refocus your attention on the child and say, well, like, let's make sure that they behave well, or let's do this. And there's lots of resources to do that, right? But in those moments, it's your responsibility to show up in the way that's the best for you and that child in the moment.
So the child's disability is not an excuse
for you to behave badly? Absolutely not.
No.
Right?
Yeah. But there is room for compassion.
100%.
That makes it harder.
It's important to be compassionate towards yourself as that parent, right? Like, you're living with this day in and day out all the time, right? I have several parents who have children with ADHD or with autism or with Down syndrome or whatever, and it's not easy, right? Like, and that's an understatement, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, like, oftentimes what I ask parents is like, do you have people who you trust that can watch your kids so you can go out and spend some time by yourself? When was the last time that you did something you enjoy, right? And oftentimes those parents will say, well, no one can handle my child, or I don't have any resources, or family's out of town, or whatever, right? But I think putting in those frameworks, if you can, right, it's helpful. And there's a lot of community resources that are available for parents. But I think, again, I mean, this might sound blunt, but the ownership has to come from you, right?
So somebody has to be the adult.
You got to be the owner of that story.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so then let's go to the other question. How do you engage with someone who is maybe losing it with their kid?
As you were sharing that's hypothetical about the grocery store, I was thinking, like, what does that parent need, right? Does the parent need the timeout? Does the parent need, like, some sort of judgment? I've been in those scenarios, and the last thing I wanted was the grumpy old lady in the back of me to be like, well, your kids are so misbehaved.
Dude, seriously.
It'd be so helpful if that lady just came around and said, hey, like, how can I help, right?
Yeah.
Or, hey, can I play with your kids real quick while you go get that thing you forgot about, right? I think helping, right? Like, we're in a world where there's a lot of stress, like we talked about, and there's probably not enough helpers, right? People that just offer a hand instead of the eye of, disapproval.
Judgment. Judgment. Well, and I remember being at Costco once, and I remember it vividly. This this child was trying to get their parents' attention.
Yeah.
And not annoyingly, just like, hey, I need some help. And I just watched the mother just like berate and criticize and, just tear down this little kid. And she did it 3 or 4 times, and we were waiting in line at the customer service. So I finally went to her and said, he's going to hate you when he gets older if you keep acting like that to him. And I was like, that's pretty bold for me to say that. I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
I can get away with saying a lot of
Right.
stuff sometimes. My wife's like, you're crazy. Stop talking to people like that, But there's something, I was trying to offer it in the voice of compassion, like, watch out, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like a true Christ-like way to look at someone is say, what do they need?
Yeah.
Because they're afraid. They're reacting because of pain or fear.
Well, that's true about the child too, right? Like any sort of misbehavior, whether the child has a neurodivergence or something like that, there's always a need attached to a maladaptive behavior, right? So whether it's self-soothing or whether it's a need for a connection or a bid for something, right? Mm-hmm. Same is true for parents, right? The parents who blow up, the parents who struggle with addiction, the parents who have, whatever it is, there's always a need attached, right? We don't turn to maladaptive ways of behaving unless we have a need that's unmet.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, do you have any stories you can share of people that you have found have been struggling with some of these things and have been able to be empowered or strengthened by some of the principles that you teach that lead them to better living? Yeah. Do you want to share one?
Yeah. So I had this family that I used to work with. I worked with all the kids. There's 4 boys and the parents. And one of the children had a suicide attempt in their past, and they came recently after that experience. But we started working with them, and obviously my focus is towards the parents, right? Like, how are you doing? Like, what resources do you have? What skills do you have? What doesn't work? Things like that. And over the years of working with them, we've been doing it for 1 or 2 years. The parents actually just recently wrote a testimonial, right? Like, we're so grateful for the work that we did in building connection with our kids and being able to own their stories as parents instead of always creating stories about what was happening with their kids. They just owned what their perspective was and what wasn't working with them and things like that. That child who had the suicide attempt is doing very well mentally and emotionally, not because I did any magical work with the child, but because the parents now connect with the child in a different way.
So
right?
There's not a storm in the house. Now the child feels safer.
Yeah, they feel safe. They feel connected to. They feel heard.
Braxton storm. Sorry, but keep going.
Yeah, they just feel safe, right? They feel like they feel connected. They feel like they're seen, heard, valued.
So how does a parent own their story? You've said that a couple of times. What's the trick?
What I found is there's lots of different therapies that can do this. But what I found is being able to understand that what you're going through right now, typically, just based on lots of theoretical frameworks, is tied to what you experienced as a child, right? Mm-hmm. So typically parents who yell or who hit or who spank or whatever it is had parents who did the same, right? Parents who are not involved or who hesitate to be vulnerable with their children or don't say sorry or don't, make amends with their children, typically had parents who didn't do the same. And so there's usually a level of avoidance there, right? Like, it's too painful for us to address, but we need to recognize, like, oh, that didn't work for me, right, as a child. And for whatever reason, I'm doing it now.
Sure.
But as a child, what did I need, right? Like, what would I have wanted from my parents? And that question, oftentimes by parents that I ask that to, they're like, well, I didn't need anything. I was fine. And so it takes some work to realize that in those moments as the little girl or little boy who needed connection or whatever it was, that's what you needed, right? And you didn't have the language, you didn't have the ability to ask it, or when you did ask it, it was denied, right? So acknowledging that and acknowledging the path, that gives you so much power, in my experience, to then be able to look at your current family dynamic and say, like, these children just had the same needs as I did, right? Yeah. There's healing in that. There's a healing to recognize that you're not so far removed from where your children currently are, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I think of all these stories. It's just fun sitting down with you because I think about my own path, and my dad's dad left him when he was 4.
Yeah.
He had mercury poisoning. My grandfather had mercury poisoning from serving in Vietnam. And that was the excuse, or that was the story, right? So that's why he bailed. I met him like 3 or 4 times in my life, not till I was much older. And so that was the story my dad had.
Yeah.
And you contrast that with my mom. She was one of 12. She was the second oldest of 12 kids, super religious. Her dad taught at BYU, so a lot of focus on the gospel. He taught religion, very popular, tons of pressure to be righteous and do good. And so she would go around and she would take care of people. Like, you know, everywhere she went, she would gather people that were more broken than she was. And she's so loving and so compassionate and so kind. That was just how she was raised because she took care of 9 other kids, right?
Yeah.
And so those story dynamics, I see, as you say this, I see how that story of my life affected how they raised me. And there were times where I felt like they were more focused on everybody else and not on me. Not that they were amazing parents, like lots of love, but there were moments, church service or taking care of a neighbor kid, or, you know, we had these amazing neighbors in Arizona, the Capelielas, so cool, Tongan, amazing family. My mom would always be taking care of them. Or there was another family, immigrants from Mexico. Their daughter was named America in Arizona. One day she got a call from America's mom that the dad had just died in a car accident. I just remember my mom sobbing, dealing with that trauma of no, now there's this family that doesn't have a dad. And those things, that story for me, it created this deep yearning inside me that I need to take care of people. I need to help people feel seen. I want to feel seen. I want to have that. It just reinforced my desire for connection.
Yeah.
What about your path led you to want to help? I know you've talked about it a little bit, but what was it that was so painful about being in your environment that made you want to do this with others?
You know, one part of my story that I didn't share is that after I was adopted, so I was adopted at 10, and then at 14, my aunt came into my room and was like, "Hey, your mom died." I was never really close to my dad. He kind of left when I was younger, but I felt extremely close to my biological mother, although I hadn't really seen her or talked to her for years. And so that like break in connection for me, I would say, was like the most pivotal in shaping the way that I.
It must have been devastating.
Yeah, devastating. Actually, I still go to therapy and do work on that, right? I actually just got my mom's ashes 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that they existed, and I just got them.
Who had them?
My aunt.
Oh.
Yeah, she had.
Was she shielding you from that, or just holding on to them, or?
Yeah, I don't know if there was any communication about it. I don't know if I wasn't aware that she had them. So before Christmas break, I was going down there, and I was like, "Hey, you have them? Like, where are these ashes?" And she told me she had them. Fascinating, like going through the ashes. Like she kept some, and I took most of them. But there's like a plate of my mom's arm because she got in a horse accident. She fell off a horse when she was a kid, and she had like a plate in her arm. And so that was in the ashes, and we're trying to think about like how to memorialize her with that plate.
That's probably closure and healing and
super. Yeah. It's been very healing. But I would say that yearning within myself, like always wanting to connect with my mom, right, and not being able to in that way, is really, I think, fueled. If I was to pinpoint it, like that's fueled.
Sure.
Everything that I do.
Sure.
Just trying to make sure that no one else ever experiences that break, right? Obviously there's death and things, but like that severed connection is really hard.
Yeah. That tearing away, that would be very, very painful.
And I would say, just to add on to that, like there's so many other ways to connect with things in today's world as opposed to when I was a kid or you were a kid. Like it's not that drastic to say that familial relationships are extremely fragile, more so now than they were before, right?
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Probably everything we're talking about, right? Like the phone, there's just so much influence in the world, right? And I have a lot of teenagers I work with, they're always like, whenever I say something, they're like, IRL? Like in real life, are you sure? Like they live in a fantasy world, right? Like I have kids who are like friends with kids across the world, right? Or friends with kids. And it's just easy to find connection in other places, right? So if they don't find it in the home, if it lasts too long, kids, especially nowadays, they don't have the attention span or the bandwidth to wait it out, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot of teens that I work with that are seriously considering like just brushing off their parents, right? Like that's a question that comes up for teens often. It's like, well, like I've waited this long, they haven't changed, they're not willing to do things different. Should I just walk away? I just met with a kid last night. He was like, yeah, I don't really need my parents. I was like, oh, you're like 15. You don't need your parents. Like that's a real thing. And I don't think parents often realize that.
Wow. Yeah, and it probably is this idea that, and Satan's really good at this. I think the devil does a great job of saying, oh, you hurt? Instead of heal the pain, let's tear out the nerve.
Yeah, just take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, avoid it.
Yeah, that's, oof.
Yeah.
Do you feel like things are going to get better in the world, or they're going to get worse? What are your thoughts?
I hope they get better.
Yeah.
I mean, because it feels good, right? It feels good to build connection. It feels good to feel seen. Again, like in my experience, there's no greater joy than building connection with others.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about before.
Yeah. I think you need others.
We're built for connection.
To have joy. Like you really can't
do it alone.
Joy into yourself.
But everyone's about that, right? Everyone's has that counterfeit mindset where it's like, oh, well, I can just do my own thing, right? I'm my own man.
Yeah.
And that path just doesn't go too long, right? Like you have to turn to something to numb the pain of being isolated. And so if we can mend those relationships, and that's the work that I focus on, like if we can build those relationships and heal them, I think that people will be far better off.
I agree with you. Well, do you have any tips for parents, like top 3 tips for parents on how to be a better parent?
Yeah. A couple things. One, repair often, right? What I mean by repair is own your mistakes and express to your child what your plan is to do differently. Yeah. And also in those moments, like you don't have to overly shame yourself, right? Like there's no benefit in shaming yourself.
Because you're just teaching them to shame themselves when they make a mistake, right?
Yeah, like own it, address it, move on, but do it every time, right? If there's like the minor mistakes where you're like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal, still do it, right?
Yeah.
Express to your child that it's okay in relationships to make mistakes. Because when that doesn't happen, then we have kids who are like, well, I'm just going to go find people who do care about me, who do own their stuff. So I would say that's number 1, own your mistakes. 2, connect first and then correct later, right? So when you connect first, you get their buy-in, their heart in the conversation or in the engagement, and then the correction naturally flows, right? Yeah. You don't have to think too hard about that. Like just think about a partner that you've had, or a business partner, or a spouse, right? If you just corrected first, right? If you just said, I hate that you do this, instead of like, hey, I really love you first. Yeah. No, it's basic.
Should be love, then truth.
Yeah.
Passion before candor. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
3 is heal yourself. Right. Do the work now to heal yourself. Do not wait for your child to soothe you, or to soothe your pain, or to change or adapt.
And what are the top 3 ways to heal yourself? Because I think that's probably something that most people avoid. Yeah. You just kind of get in the routine. You get in the habit of, I just got to keep going. I got to survive. Right. We kind of just hold things in.
Yeah. What I found, I mean, there's a lot of resources, right? There's so many resources about how to heal yourself. I think, just maybe I'm biased, but I think therapy can be one of the most helpful things for parents in understanding where you've come from and why you're doing what you're doing, and being able to change that belief system. Yeah. That's tied together.
Helps have somebody else guide you along that discovery path.
Yeah, and it's so individualized, right? Like it's hard anywhere else to find an individualized experience where it's focused on your experience and what you've been through. YouTube can only take you so far, right?
That's true.
It doesn't know you. It doesn't know your experience.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, and I think there's also these moments where I was studying the other day about entering into the peace of the Lord. And I think counseling helps you start to open up to connecting with yourself. Yeah. And it's just the beginning. You do have to have this relationship with God, right? John 17:3, eternal life is knowing God, knowing Christ and his Son, and letting him define you. If you define yourself by anything else, you'll be consistently disappointed, right? So this is something this is probably one of my last hard questions for you, but do you think it's good in the counseling profession that counselors are encouraged not to use religion as part of the technique to help people heal?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Yeah, if I could do, which I'm kind of exploring alternative options like coaching and things, but yeah, no. So what I've done, I mean, I have a lot of clients who are Christian or who believe in God.
So if they bring it up,
if that's initiated, it's more than welcome. But in cases where it's not, I substitute spiritual words for more temporal words, right? Like grace and forgiveness and like different things like that. Like I still try to tailor the message in a way that directs them towards
truth and light. Yeah. That makes sense. So do you envision a future where counseling is more Christ-centered or God-centered?
I think there's going to be a lot of that, right? And
yeah, I do too. Okay, so I ask everybody who comes on, what do you believe?
Yeah.
What's your why? We talked a lot about what your why is.
Sure.
And then what do you do in your life to create light?
So the first question, what do I believe?
Yeah.
I believe that we're all wired for connection, and that's divine, right? I don't think that that's something that came after birth. I think that was a part of our divinity, is being wired to connect, right? Like you said, connect with ourselves, connect with God, connect with others around us, right? There's no way that at least those who believe in the divine would find any sort of hope or healing alone, right? And I also believe that mistakes don't define us, right? Like we're all just trying our best, and I think that's part of the point of what I do, is trying to help parents understand like there's no point where we get perfect, right? And that's the purpose, right?
Sure.
Like kids need to know that imperfection is okay, and it's a part of the experience. So I would say that those are the two big things that at least in this framework, I believe.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And what do you do to create light?
Yeah.
Let's say you're in a dark spot. What do you do to create light?
That's a good question. A couple things. I like to create. I've been thinking about this idea of creation. I do social media and things like that, just to like spread light, right? I find myself, when I spread light, I am filled with light. And so that's one of the things I try to do. Spend time with my kids. Like, what better light is there than dealing with kids?
Wrestling.
Yeah, just having
fun. Yeah,
having fun. Spend time with my family, reading the scriptures, serving, being with people.
I love that. Well, I think you have a lot of light, and so we actually give out these gifts. They're little lightsabers.
Oh, there you go.
So this is kind of fun because they light up, and
that's so funny.
They're just a nice little reminder that we as humans generate light. If I can open it, and there's this opportunity, even when we're faced with darkness, I think we all have an opportunity to. Okay, no, I can't get it out.
I got you.
But we all have an opportunity to figure out, well, hey, I don't have to be changed by the experience. I don't have to succumb to the pain or the fear.
Right.
And when we turn on that love and that connection, it generates light. And I think you are a great example of someone who's trying to help other people learn how to turn on the light inside them. So thank you for being you.
Thanks for being you. Glad we connected.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.